Okay, now as we schedule, now is the time for the translation. Please Dhamma talk in English and then go for the discussion. To start the talk in English, everyone may consent 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Today is the 4th day and afternoon we had the Sinhalese talk, and now I am going to give a translation or brief translation. And as far as the series is concerned, we were dealing with one particular discourse known as Majjhe Sutta, the middle, and we are trying to understand the 2 extremes and the middle with different perspectives. The very first interpretation according to the Sutta was the 2 extremes and the middle in terms of the contact. We took 2 days to deal with that, and yesterday we took the time dimension, the 2 extremes as the past and the future, and the middle as the present. Today our topic was on the feelings, how we can separate feelings in terms of 2 extremes and the middle is concerned. If I am to give a translation directly, that particular monk presenting this idea says, the pleasurable feeling is one extreme, the painful feeling is the other extreme, the middle is the no pain, no pleasure feeling, and the desire is the one connecting each other, the pain and the pleasure, without allowing the mind to see the no pain, no pleasure situation. So therefore, whoever may be, discriminate, this is pain, this is pleasure, and then without getting attached into this pain and pleasure, if can manage to see the neutral feeling or no pain, no pleasure feeling, and still yet, though dwelling on the neutral feeling, not attached to it, that is the character of the great person. Such a person can overcome the malice function of this desire. So the general topic that we are going to deal today. So in the meditation, usually we know we are coming to meditation in order to get rid of the suffering, the sansaric suffering, and therefore our main aim is to seek pleasure, and there are 3 methods or 3 kinds of pleasure. One thing is the materialistic kind of pleasure, that is the eye contact with the pleasurable visual objects, the ear get contact with the sounds, and the nose with the smells, the tongue with the taste, the body with the different tactile sensations, and the mind with the principles and the philosophy, the views. So this is what the worldly knowledge is meant. But those who are practicing meditation, in terms of concentration meditation, they can go beyond this materialistic pleasure, and they can taste under their very nose the immaterial pleasure, that is going to a place and closing the eyes, go to a silent place, no smelling, no tasting, body also fixed, and the mind is fixed into one particular object. When the concentration happens, then he or she can understand the immaterial pleasure that is much, much praiseworthy when compared with the material pleasure. And before the rising of the Buddha, in the India, that was also a kind of a common thing, accepted thing. But the Buddha is the first and foremost person was not happy with this material and immaterial pleasure. He went into what is called Avedita Sukha, that is imperceivable, unperceivable, but worth calling the eternal pleasure. So therefore, whenever someone comes to the meditation sphere, always searching for pleasurable feelings in sitting, in walking, and in the day-to-day activities. So mind attached to this pleasure-seeking game, but all the time one can't get the pleasurable feeling, instead get equal or more painful feeling. So when we compare our mental stream of consciousness, it appears like we are shifting from pain to the pleasure, pleasure to the pain, and it's a matter of pain and the pleasure changing the position. In order to enlighten on the fact, we can get a quotation from the particular sutta known as this Shullavedalla Sutta, appear in the Majjhe Nikaya, and there's one nice dialogue or discussion between the Upasaka, between the bhikkhu known as the Visakha and the bhikkhuni known as the Dhammajiva. The Visakha is asking a particular tricky question from that bhikkhuni, from that arahant, enlightened bhikkhuni, namely the Dhammajiva. What is the pain and pleasure of the pleasurable feeling? The wise answer from the Dhammajiva was, when the pleasurable feeling, when the pleasurable feeling is coming, we feel happy. When the pleasurable feeling is leaving us, we feel not happy. It's a pain. And then the Visakha asked the other part of the question, then what is the pain and pleasure of the painful feeling? Then the verily Bhikkhuni Dhammajiva telling, when the painful feeling, when it's arising, it's a pain, but it is when it's leaving, you get a pleasure. But she is not happy with this superficial answer. Each and every part she says, whenever the pleasurable feeling is there, as it come in, we feel happy. When it goes off, naturally it is unhappy. But the natural tendency, the latent tendency of the desire is undermining our mental stream of consciousness. When we apply the same principle to the painful feeling, when it is coming in, we feel unhappy. But when the painful feeling is leaving us, it appears like a pleasurable, but the undermining tendency, the latent tendency is the hatred. So therefore, whenever the pleasurable feeling comes, our mind is engrossed with this latent tendency of the desire. So therefore, even it leaves with the pain in the mind, we fail to see the painful part of the pleasurable feeling, because our mind is bewildered, mind is taken over by these tendencies. Therefore, we see only the pleasurable part of the pleasurable feeling. As and when the painful feeling happens, our mind stream of consciousness gets possessed, obsessed with latent tendency of the hatred. Therefore, even though the painful feeling is leaving us, leaving pleasurable atmosphere, we fail to see it because our mind is obsessed with this hate or latent tendency of the hatred. So therefore, we never see any kind of a good side of the painful feeling with the rational mind. So once the Dhammajiva given this knowledge, then the yogi or practitioner can see, whenever the painful, pleasurable feeling happens, we are welcoming it. But ultimately when it's leaving, the mind's mental state is painful. When the painful feeling coming, we are not happy. But when it is leaving, there's a good chance for you to, there's a good reason for you to be glad, because leaving of the painful feeling is a pleasure. So therefore, once we come in and get this book knowledge and the understanding from this kind of thing, we can have a new look, new approach to the pain and the pleasure, and then we sometimes can manage to see the painful feeling in the pleasure and the pleasurable feeling in the pain. Likewise, we can have a different perspectives. So therefore, meditators, the teachers, instruct or expect the meditators to practice in such a way not to react to the pleasurable feeling or to the painful feeling. See them as they are without assuming and without reaction. So therefore, whenever the painful feeling appearing, overcoming or disturbing your primary object, you just note it as pain. Whenever pleasurable feeling happens, you note it as pain, pleasure. And ultimately, if you manage to note each and every pain and the pleasurable feeling, you may find that the total time you can't explain through this pain and pleasure. That's a huge gap remaining. That cannot be recognized as pain or pleasure. If the mind is obsessed, you will never see that there's such a gap there. You will see morning to the evening or whole session is either pain or pleasure. But if you manage to label them, if you manage to note them, if you manage to pinpoint them, then only you will come to know there are a lot of areas, lot of gaps, lot of black holes or lot of black boxes. We can't categorize as pain or pleasure. Then only we can recognize that there is a place where we can say it is what you call the no pain, no pleasure kind of feeling. We can approach the same thing theoretically yet another way, that is to say, if we are comfortably sitting with the primary object face to face, and after a while continuous contemplation of the primary object, ultimately going down to the very subtle form and unto the subtlest form. And when it go to the subtlest, for example, the in-breath and out-breath, unperceivably subtle form, we can't explain that experience in terms of feelings, because it is no pain, no pleasure. Because that cannot be labeled, that cannot be recognized, usually what happened is mind become bewildered, mind become hazy, mind become undecided, and therefore feel uncomfortable, feel irritated like to experience this no pain, no pleasure situation. This appears in the discussion among the Visakha and the Dhammajiva in this way. The Visakha is asking the question, the phrasing the question in such a way, he is asking what is the pain and pleasure of the no pain, no pleasure situation, no pain, no pleasure feeling. Then the most appropriate answer coming from the Dhammajiva is, if you know no pain, no pleasure situation, you are happy. If you do not know no pain, no pleasure situation, that is unhappy. So that means no pain, no pleasure situation also have the happiness and unhappiness. If you are aware, if you go prepared and if you are ready to welcome it, you will end up with happiness. But if you try to avoid it, feel bored, feel monotonous, feel bewildered, and feel uncomfortable, irritant, then you are experiencing painful feelings. So therefore, your attitude, your preparedness, your approach is the what deciding whether the no pain, no pleasure situation is pleasurable or painful. So therefore, when the person becomes familiar with the primary object, and the object becomes subtle, and ultimately becomes subtlest, and if he is endowed with theory knowledge and go prepared, can understand most of our day or most of our time in the sitting, we are experiencing no pain, no pleasure situation, but we do not recognize them. We do not experience it because we can't label it. We have no any perception for that, so therefore we categorize them as useless. We categorize it as uncomfortable, irritant. So therefore, whenever the object becomes subtle, when the object becomes unperceivable, this is a kind of a tricky point where meditation change from Kayanupassana to Vedananupassana. That means the Satipatthana, the first Satipatthana, that is dwell on contemplation of body on body, change into the dwelling on the contemplation feeling on feelings. This changeover is a very important event in the meditative life, but no one can sort it out with one's own knowledge, with one's own rationalization, with one's own deductive knowledge. Definitely there should have the theory knowledge, the instructions and preparedness, otherwise we will be ever rotating on this particular point, we will never go through it, we will never see through it. So therefore, changing from Kayanupassana, that is materiality, that is gross part of the Satipatthana, and changing into the mentality starting from this feeling is a very tricky point. So therefore, if whenever someone becomes capable to understand the no pain, no pleasure, that day onward, the meditation appear more neutral or rather happy, more rather pleasurable, because most of our time, most of the mental states are no pain, no pleasure, but we do not understand. We do not recognize it. So therefore this understanding is very important. So when we go back to the Majjhe Sutta, it says as far as the mind is obsessed with the past and the future, that is an extreme, the yogi must do away with that. Whenever we recognize and whenever we recognize the pain and the pleasure, not the past and the future, pain and the pleasure, and then only your mind gets exposed into this no pain, no pleasure situation, and once this recognized, unless otherwise it is go prepared with theory knowledge, usually you avoid it due to the boredom, due to the monotony, due to the bewildered nature, due to this uncomfortable situation. So therefore, easily you miss the bus. But if you go prepared, ultimately you can find whenever the pain is there, you recognize as pain. Whenever the pleasure is there, you recognize as pleasure. And majority of time you find there is no such a label can be fixed. That means no pain, no pleasure. And when that happens, if you manage to face it without reacting, without feel bored, without feel monotonous, without feel uncomfortable, without feel irritant, then only you are entering into the mental part of your meditation, successfully completing for that day, for that session, successfully completing the materiality, you are entering into the mentality, and then there's a higher chances for you to understand the so-called meditative gladness. That's preparing the path for the pleasure. So that is why Anapanasati Sutta or Girimananda Sutta, it says after the breath becomes very subtle and you without adding any turmoils, if you lead the meditation into this subtle form, next start with Piti Patisangvedi Asasi Samiti Sikkati, Piti Patisangvedi Pasasi Samiti Sikkati. That means restrain the breath, feeling the rapture and then the pleasure. But it never happens without troubles. The trouble you face is the boredom. Trouble you face is the monotony. Trouble you face is the the uncomfortable situation, so therefore knowingly one has to go forward and go through it. Then only this pain and pleasure, the pleasure and the happiness happens. So there also one has to not get attracted into that, not get attached into that. That is how you must dwell upon the middle path. Even though you earn the middle path, avoiding the two extremes, namely the pain and pleasure, again the middle path will be yet another attachment, yet another place you get bogged down. So that also has to be dealt properly. So that is why the Buddha says, don't get obsessed with the pain and the pleasure. Try to see the no pain, no pleasure situation, the neutral feeling. And over there also, though you dwell on neutral feeling, don't try to get attached into that. Don't try to get trapped into that. And that is how you can develop the great mind or become a great person. Then only the bond, the attachment, the weaver, you can bypass. So therefore, passing or completing the materiality, entering into the mentality, starting with the feeling, is a very good bottleneck. It's a kind of a episode, maturity in the meditative life, and therefore one has to have a fair understanding on theory knowledge. Otherwise, the meditative experience will be sour in taste rather than the sweetness. So therefore, discussions and interviews and sorting out this point is very important for the furthering of the development. And some teacher says, if the disciple and the teacher is helping each other, for the disciple to come out of this junction, from this bottleneck, the more responsibility is upon the teacher's side than the disciple. So therefore, ever promoting the disciples to come and report whatever may be experiencing in terms of the primary object. But the background, you can see whether the yogi, the practitioner, is in the happy mood or in the unhappy mood, and that is also teacher is concerned, and the interpretation, the happiness interpret with this latent tendency of the desire, the unhappiness interpreted with the latent tendency of the hatred, is the what clouding the situation in the communication between the teacher and the disciple. So therefore, you must report boldly how do you feel when the primary object becomes subtle, when the primary object becomes docile, when the primary object becomes under control, how do you feel it? So whenever the proper report, whenever the proper interview happens, the wise teacher can understand it and guide and say, if you are not going prepared, often you will go back to the source and you will be in the vortex, get caught up and never raise your head upon this vortex. So therefore, this third interpretation is very important in this Majjhe Sutta, and only those who have gone through and managed can feel it's in the essential Dhamma part, but the others, it is appear like just a complication, just a very deep Dhamma, but how to practice, put into practice. So most important communication, most important thing there is the discussion. How one can report properly one's own experience to the teacher without meditator's interpretation. Meditator's interpretation is the one completely bewildering, disturbing, clouding, puddling, muddling the communication. So therefore you must report what you experience, and then the other part, the teacher also must be listening very carefully, then only can understand. At a certain stage, yogis develop boredom, yogis develop monotony, yogis develop self-critical, yogis develop irritation, yogis develop uncomfortability, and it's a good sign for a reasonable teacher. But the disciple, the yogi will never understand this as a good sign. Instead, what can happen is, that particular yogi can quit from the teacher, go away from the meditation center, change the meditation object, methods, in order to get rid of this boredom. But this experienced teacher will understand this boredom is a very good sign of the progress. So therefore, interviews, Dhamma discussions are very important in sorting out this situation. So that is what I thought of sharing with you all in the evening discussion. Thank you very much for listening. So we'll go for the discussion, and we have some written questions. Unlucky only in Sinhala. So I will deal it with Sinhala. So if I invite anyone to come out and raise questions while the discussion is going on, though I am going to tackle with these written questions.
How do we know that our meditation is leading towards this passion?
To displeasure.
Or is that something that we just leave up to for the time being?
It is progressing or not?
Yeah, that our meditation, our object of meditation or method of meditation is going to lead us to this passion.
You feel less frictional. The friction reduces between your mind and the object, and in the society, and with the nature, everything, least frictional path. How do you can say? Yeah. Least frictional path is the straightmost path. That is the power line. So you find if the mind is not meditating, the path is very crooked, not straight, and friction, everywhere friction. That indicates you are unskillful. But when the meditation happens, everything very smooth, and the less frictional, it is like a well-greased machine, is working with the very nice humming sound. No wear and tear, no heating, no the jerks. That is how everything happens very smoothly. So least frictional path, or less and less friction, or that means less and less reaction, is the only way specifically towards the vipassana meditation. So this is the...
Sometimes it seems like the mind is just moving from one attachment to another, and it might be like a less passionate attachment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's still directing passion toward something else, maybe you would call more like kusala, or maybe better, but still something.
So you have to read that Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta in the, how do you call this, Majjhe Nikaya. It is talking one principle, idam nissa idam pajahata. You remove this with the help of this. That is the way. And therefore, all the time you must get rid of the gross thing by making use the subtle thing. And the subtle thing we must be replaced with the subtlest thing. So likewise, our whole path is from gross to the subtlety, known to the unknown, self to the non-self. This is gross to the... Therefore, sometimes people say this is the matter of giving up. Get it off. But you never give up something unless you hold something. What you should hold is a subtle one than what it was. That means you are progressing. But even then it's a clinging, it is an attachment, it is a holding, but you are holding a subtle one, a skillful one, and less frictional one, and that is how you can get rid of the gross one. So therefore the Buddha gave the classic example. He says, wooden chair, usually they fix with wooden nails. I don't know whether it is available in Thailand and other places. They never use iron. They make a drill and put a wooden peg, wooden nail. So the Buddha says if the wooden nail is rotten and if it is jerky and shaky, what the carpenter do is prepare a new, hard, good wooden nail and keep it in the same place and hit it. And then the new thing will come, all will be replaced. That is how unskillful will be replaced by more skillful thing. So therefore both the place you cling, you hold it, but what you hold is a better one when compared to the last one. So this is a reciprocal kind of a relationship, not a linear kind of relationship. So therefore you are ever attached, but attached more and more to the subtler thing than when compared with the yesterday gross thing. So that you can feel it.
So if we're aiming towards discussion towards the body as the first stage, is that correct? Discussion towards our own body. No?
It is very difficult to say a good and bad kind of answer, because we have to have the compassion to the body. Atta kusala, no. You must have, how do you call that, you must know how to make use this body in order to get the enlightenment. For that, there should have a kind of a health, there should have a kind of energy, and you must have the good part, that we got a human body. Suppose if we are going to get an animal body, we can't. So human body has a good. So therefore, whenever you are going to develop the repulsivity towards the body, the hatred can be working as the undermining or tendency, latent tendency. So if you are doing this repulsivity with the latent tendency of the hatred, you are in a perpetual vortex. You will be keep on hating, ultimately you will end up with, worst case, committing suicide. It happened, you have to read it in the Parajika Pali in the third one, that the one day the Buddha wanted to get the retreat, silent retreat. Before that he gave the repulsivity of the body. And then he goes. Ultimately each and every monk found this, what is this whole filth? Born in the evening I have to maintain it, it is such a burden, ultimately they start cutting throats. And there was one particular monk, he was it's not a genuine kind of thing. He asked, if you wish to cut, I will cut it for you, but please give me the rope and the bowl. So ultimately he became very rich, and each day he cut 1, 2, 3 people like. So when the Buddha come back, he found the population has thinned down. Then asked the Venerable Ananda, why Ananda, these people, that population is so thin? Then he said, Bhante, before you go, you gave this instruction to see this repulsivity of the body, so they were over-contemplating upon that, and then obsessed with that, they start committing suicide. Then Buddha says, ask everyone to get together. And after that Buddha says, if you have that kind of a perversion, if you have that kind of a, latent tendencies, do Anapanasati. Anapana will never give that kind of a perversion. Therefore he says, Anapanasati samadhi bhikkave santocheva panitocha asechanakocha sukocha viharocha uppanne papake avasare dhamme antardhapeti upasamati. It says asechanakocha santocheva panitocha sukocha viharocha. Anapana itself is good dwelling, result also good. But the repulsivity is a bias. Repulsivity good if you have a lustful character. Otherwise, don't overemphasize the repulsivity because it becomes self-destructive.
If we know that the contemplation on the body brings us to a state of more calm than our normal state of awareness, and because of that calm, a greater sense of happiness. So So then if we have that happiness, then the hatred can still be latent, or is that a sign of appropriate meditation?
Still you have to be careful. In the Western psychology, the sadistic mentality, they were happy by inflicting suffering. It's a mental aberration. So therefore, that the serenity what you are talking may be the mind-made one, that you entertain that is called sadistic. And that is not a health, that is not a healthy mentality. So therefore very difficult for you to decide upon that. So you have to discuss with someone, and you have to have other external viewpoints. And if the mind is perverted, if the mind is working with the tendency, kind of a hate-based one, your interpretation happen accordingly. So you will be going from rut to the rut. So therefore these, the metta, buddhanusati, asubha maranasati, all are prescription drugs. You have to have a prescribe. Someone has to prescribe with your disease. It is not the over-the-counter like Panadol and kind of thing. Someone has prescribed, you have this disease, you have to take this medicine. Otherwise, you can't. Therefore, at the beginning you must have, I have lust as my hindrance, and the antidote for the lust is the repulsivity of the body. But the contemplation of the body is not always repulsivity. Kaya gata sati, even anapana is come under the contemplation of the body. So therefore, I am now talking about the repulsivity of the body. The Asubha Bhavana, Asubha is a special remedy, special prescription drug for the lustful character, desire, prominent character. So therefore, you must have your own first-hand experience as to say, my main hindrance is the desire, the attachment, the lust. If it is so, repulsivity will compensate.
Do you mean only for the lustful?
No, that four guardian meditation for four characters. For the hate character, metta bhavana. The hateful character, loving kindness. For the people postponing everything, the young people say we can do meditation in the latter part, now is then marananusati. Marana is indicating that urgency. And those who feel exhausted, battery gone flat, and no urge, such a people, buddhanusati. So likewise, you have to see the character traits, and then fit the answer accordingly, or the remedy accordingly. So therefore, before this meditation, vipassana meditation come, whole world, Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, everywhere, they were very happy with four guardian meditation. They were never doing any kind of a main trunk meditation. So therefore, at that time, my teacher, Venerable Jnanarama, has gone everywhere in Sri Lanka, and he has found the historically what is left behind. Everything is nothing but the guardian meditation. But after that, only Burmese meditation came with the vipassana. This gives the direct touch, direct distinction to the Maggapala. And guardian meditation is the supporting thing, the groundwork. And that also, you have to do utility value. You have to understand what the purpose of it. But it says, you must have a general understanding about all the four. Whenever necessary, you have to use it. But which is to be specialized is a specific thing, the specialized thing to get the utility value. Why I am doing it? Because I have this disease.
Especially why is it advised sometimes to start with the Bhavana before you are cycle?
That is that even when you are in Anapanasati, if you are get irritated again and again by the little sounds and all the kind of thing, at that time you have already prepared Metta Bhavana little by just to put and compensate it.
So it is good to start with that.
Yeah, that is understanding. So whenever in our bullock carts in Sri Lanka, all the time they bring some enderutel tika. What is that? Enderutel? It is castor oil. Because if it is, there's a wear and tear and heat comes, they put little bit of, that is called lubricant. You don't know where it needs, all the time they carry. So likewise the Metta Bhavana is known as sineha, the lubricant. Whenever you feel wear and tear, the heat, apply little. For that you must have all the time. in the bullock cart. Buddha is with a flat mind. You feel like not going and everything is flat and boring and lethargic and damn kind of thing. Then understand we have meditation centers, we have teachers, we have people to feed and everything. And during the Buddha's time, nothing happened. But still he never gave up. Buddha never gave up. So if I am to be a disciple of the Buddha, how can we develop this kind of a flatulence? Like you can recharge, stir the mind and get up and go. So like us, each and everyone has their specific functions.
The concentration of the four elements is maybe...
Four elements?
Yeah, contemplating separating the four elements instead of asura might be a little more safer route.
Yeah, that is why when you are contemplating on the robes, when you are contemplating on the food, dwelling, medicine.
No, I mean water, fire, earth.
Yeah, that is why, I mean, they are also yatha paccayam pavattamanan dhatu mattame vetan yadidam pindapato. If I contemplate properly on the pindapa, it is nothing but four elements. And that is deep vipassana. Nissato nijjiva sunyo. That pindapati is not a being. It has no life. It is no self. The consuming me, also not a being, not a life. These four elements come mixed up with these four elements, that's all. So each time you are chewing pindapata, each time you are wearing the robe, each time you are using the dwelling, each time you take medicine, that is what the Buddha says, put into the elements, then at the end of the Christian funeral, they say ash to ash, soil to soil. Remember? That's all. Pindapata also the same. This ash come into this ash, this soil come to this soil, and that's all. This is just a matter of transaction of elements. There's no self, there's no being. So that always you have to remember for each cud you are chewing, each morsel, each time you are wearing. So that is, it is a very universal kind of thing, and therefore you break the limits between the external and internal. You break the limit of choose. The hardness is hardness, internal or external. The fluidity is fluidity, internal or external. So your mind becomes universal level, and ultimately what in the physics you learn is the Ghana, Drava, Vayu Gyana, English. Solid, liquid, air, thermal physics. Ultimately you are learning physics in Buddhism. Buddha also talking about all the four elements. So then your mind becomes universal, whether living or non-living, whether internal or external, whether like or dislike. When the element happens, everything will be neutralized. Neutralized mind come to the datum level, unpolluted level. So Dhatumantra is a great achievement which you can do internally or whenever you are encountering with using for requisites or any other person. If you can see in terms of Dhatu Manasikara, hardly the mind gets shaken. It will be generally in the equilibrium. The Dhatu Manasikara is a very skillful thing. It happens in the Anapanasati, at the Sabbakaya Patisanvedi Asasi Samiti Sikkati. Sabbakaya Patisanvedi Pasasi Samiti Sikkati, that means the third, fourth levels. It's a general invitation is there to see things in terms of dhatu, in terms of elements. It's a fair amount of mindfulness and the concentration must be there. Otherwise, just by theoretical recitation, it won't happen. Mind should have the qualities to understand. So, tomorrow I will get a little relaxation because 5 o'clock I will leave. Otherwise, it's too much for talking in the evening time. So anyway, if there are no questions, I would like to sum up today's discussion to winding up the situation.